The reason why this is going to be fascinating again for Bears fans is Ryan Poles has shown you with the way he speaks, with what has been filmed in the draft room, and by his actions, that he is super open and super aggressive to making deals. It started in his very first season. He saw a wide receiver who was young that he felt could help the team, not just in the short term with Justin Fields, but in the long term as a wide receiver who could grow with the team, and that was Chase Claypool. They traded a second-round pick for him. The trade didn't end up working, but I liked the process, and it made sense, and it was aggressive. And what I liked even more about Ryan Poles was he didn't let the Chase Claypool failure hurt his mentality the very next trade deadline. Other general managers would have been like, I got burned last year. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. Because he said, it all made sense. We just chose poorly. Let's choose right. And they took a guy in Montez Sweat who is available from Washington, another team who was in sell mode. More NFL teams are in sell mode these days. NFL teams didn't used to sell. They would just say, okay, not our year. We're keeping our guys, and then we'll just deal with it at the end of the season. Washington was one of those teams. They had high-priced defensive talent. They're like, we'll sell them. And they sold a couple of their defensive ends last year. And the Bears benefited by trading a second round, the same playbook, second round pick, young player, something of need that helped them last year and is helping them go forward. They agreed to a new contract with Montez Sweat. Who's that guy this year? Two years in a row, second round picks. They've got 2 second round picks this year. I'm not telling you for sure they're going to trade a second round pick, but he's been aggressive. Now he's in a different mindset where he's battling 3 teams in the NFC North for a playoff spot. He told you at the beginning of the year, it's time to win. He was really tempted to trade up for Rome Odunze. This is a guy who is always aggressive, who is always looking to make his move. Tell me why he's not going to do that this year at the trade deadline.
I'm not going to. I've been saying for weeks now that I think they're going to be very aggressive and not reckless. So I set the number at 1.5 deals. I would go over pre-handily. I think that they will be aggressive. I'd be shocked if they didn't make something happen. It's just the nature of how they do business up there, and I like it.
They almost made a deal, if you remember, in training camp as well with the New England Patriots.
With Matthew Judon.
Matthew Judon.
Yep. Now,
we brought up the situation. There are 2 great defensive ends who could be available. And we're talking top shelf, well above Montez Sweat. We're talking about at the top of the food chain here. We're talking about Crosby, who very well could be available, and Myles Garrett, who some don't think is much. Like Albert Burr talked about Myles Garrett today. He said, do not aggregate me. He says, I'm not telling you that Cleveland will trade him. I'm just telling you that people will call about Myles Garrett.
Comes down to, too, with both of those guys, what's it going to cost and what is your financial situation? Because both of those guys make a ton of money. And both of them would cost you quite a bit in trade. I'm not guaranteeing you that they are going to make a deal like that, but I feel pretty confident they're putting a call in to ask what it would cost. No different than, like, if you're the Cubs and you're making a call for.
Is that a bad comp? Who are the Cubs calling about?
Well, I'm saying you should make the call to Shohei's people and at least find out.
Don't get me. You know that. You know they weren't serious about that.
My point is you should still make the call. That's my point. Whether or not the price is too high, Ryan Poles should make the call to the Raiders and should make the call to the Cleveland Browns to see what the cost is.
The only difference is would you be putting too much into an area of strength? Because you need to rebuild that. You need 4 new guys on the offensive line, correct?
Possibly, yeah.
Because even if you bring Tevin Jenkins back, you're bringing him back at a higher price.
Well, you're going to bring in one of the guys probably with your first-round pick.
Okay.
Your first round pick or your second round pick coming from Carolina is going to be pick number 33. So you could basically you could fill 2 offensive line spots with the first 33 picks of the draft. So I mean, would you be better off? They would know this better than I as well. Who is out there to either acquire via a trade or sign as a free agent to help bolster your offensive line? I'm with you 100%. I think your quarterback's the most important position in all of sports. I think the guys that chase the quarterbacks are the second most important position for me in my power rankings in the sport. Is that a lot to put towards your 2 defensive ends? Hell yeah, it is. Can you make it work because you've got a rookie quarterback? Possibly. At the very least, I would make the call.
Are the Bears, do you feel the Bears are getting good production right now from that second defensive end spot with their rotation? I feel like when you look at some of the guys that they're rotating, they're getting decent pressure from various guys throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been horrible. In fact, I think that their sack total has them in top 13 or 15 at this point. Last year, they were 30th, 31st, something like that.
And where's
this year,
their pressure rate?
better.
And Sweat hasn't, flashes their game planning for him, obviously. But I feel like DeMarcus Walker has continued to play in the second, like he played in the second. I think he's played pretty well, actually.
Yeah, there's no question. Again, it wouldn't stop me from calling either of those teams.
And wasn't the only thing I just say is the Bears show no interest in signing one of the high-priced free agent defensive ends in the offseason. And then with Judon, I believe, wasn't the holdup with Judon because
he wouldn't agree to a contract extension.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought they didn't want to pay him.
I thought it was that
because they wanted to pay him
I thought they wanted him to sign a contract extension,
like a team-friendly deal or something like that.
I don't know. But look, again, I'm not guaranteeing you. I'm just telling you that everything would be on the table for me.
Yeah,
everything.
The Falcons were willing to do the deal without an extension. The Bears wanted an extension.
Yeah,
the Bears wanted an extension. Yeah, and he was fine not getting the extension.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. I think you make a trade like that, you would want to lock the guy up. Look again. I think that they will make 1,000 calls. I don't think that they'll be reckless. I call about everybody. What does it hurt?
No,
it doesn't hurt
fair.
anything. You know what I mean? Like, I got a rookie quarterback. I can do some stuff now that I can't do in 3 years.
Right. But if you, again, like what you talked about, if you do call about Crosby, and I would love Max Crosby on this team, don't get me wrong. Now's the time to do all this stuff. That's at least 2 first-round picks.
Well, yeah, I don't know what it's going to cost you. Yeah,
so
I don't know.
And then you're not filling those picks with offensive linemen.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that it'll cost. I don't know what it'll cost you. I have no idea.
Well, I mean,
maybe Myles Garrett. I don't know.
Khalil Mack. I would say it's close to the Khalil Mack.
You got Khalil Mack to start the season too. You're 7 games or 8 games into this season as well.
What's Crosby's contract status?
I don't know.
Yeah, they signed him to a big money deal. He's under lock and key for a while.
So I don't think he's leaving there without a couple of picks. And I'm hamstrung then in the salary cap situation. I'm a hamstrung then with picks. That's the only thing. And I've got an unbalanced offensive line.
It would never hurt you to call them and ask them. If they say it's going to cost you 2 ones, then I walk away.
Yeah,
of course. I'm not going to overpay. This is where I say he's going to be aggressive, not reckless. Giving away 2 first-round picks would be reckless. But just see what it would cost you. Sometimes the cost isn't like what you would expect it to be, especially when you're dealing with the Raiders, because they don't really do business smart. They do business in a less than smart manner a lot of the times. See what it's. I mean, look, the Detroit Lions are going to make a deal like that. They're a more complete team. They could get away with giving away their ones, so they may be in better position.
Their line is good.
Absolutely. You could argue they're the best line in the National Football League.
Bob and Rosemont tweeted us. I don't know his health situation. I do know he's on injured reserve. Yesterday, he tweeted us with the name Wyatt Teller from the Cleveland Browns. He is a guard, a high-priced guard. I know some Bears blogs have written about him. His salary is over $20 million a year. He signed through next year, and he's on injured reserve with a knee injury. He's eligible to come off at the end of October, but he is He's a Pro Bowl / All Pro type guard who is still, I believe he's 29 years old. So, and the cost to get him is believed to be like a late round pick because of his salary being so high. So you can get him for lower draft compensation, but again, you're paying him a lot of money for the next year and a half. So more food for thought there.
There's a lot of avenues for them to look at. And again, like I said, I bet they've spent a lot of time this bye week calling a lot of different teams, which is what I love about this group because they're aggressive. A lot of teams would just sit on their hands and do nothing.
Yeah.
I don't expect that to be a case up there at Halas Hall.
But I expect them to probably sell Khalil Herbert. I expect them to sell if there are takers for Nate Davis, even if it's a conditional late round pick.
See if somebody's still willing to. We were under the impression that someone was willing to give you something for Velus Jones. Ask. See what you have. What do you got?
I still can't believe they didn't pull that trigger. Like you had stock up. Someone was willing to give you something. A lot of people were talking about cutting him even. And you put him on the roster. You turned down a trade. And you had him on the roster, was it 1 week on the active roster?
Yes.
And he kicked the football, and he's been inactive every week. I think he was maybe active the week after, but didn't return.
Was he
kicks.
active in Houston?
He may have been, but at least he has not had a role really every week after that. And they just, again, you'd be selling low and. But yeah, if you could get a 7th round pick for him, I'd get rid of him.
It also opens up an opportunity for you to evaluate somebody else, even if you put him on the practice squad, like or you bring in this guy and you sit him down. You know what this guy gives you. Maybe take this opportunity to move on from him and bring in somebody else that you had scouted over the course of the last year or two that you'd like to give a chance going forward. So I'm just glad that it feels like the landscape has changed and teams are going to be more active.
What would you do if you were the Bears? Are you trading for somebody of note? Are you going to the Raiders? Are you going to Cleveland? And are you going to the top shelf on defense that would cost you a lot of picks and a lot of cash? Or are you doing everything possible to find an upgrade on the offensive line with someone that you can grow with?